We'll call to order this regular session meeting of the Park City School Board on August 16th at 4 p.m. We do pledge of allegiance. Andrew, would you like to lead us?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
On to consent agenda. Can I please get a motion to approve the consent agenda, which includes regular session minutes of June 21st, closed session minutes of May 17th and June 21st, account payable registers of June 3rd, 8th, 13th, 14th, 15th, 22nd, 24th, 27th, July 7th, 8th, 9th, 11th, 19th, 20th, 21st, 22nd, 26th, 30th, 31st, August 1st, 2nd, and 4th of 2022. Pretty much every day.
Like a lot of checks, Don.
Yeah.
A lot of checks.
Early learning plan, travel requests, classified professional agreement, personnel information, and June revenues and expenditures.
I make a motion to adopt the motion to see it.
Second.
Any discussion?
None for me.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, that is unanimous. Let's move on to our employee groups. Mary, would you like to come up or?
Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome back. PCA is excited to start the 2022-23 school year. We'd like to thank the school board for approving the increase in the regional housing and travel allowance. Teachers, like people across the country, are experiencing the squeeze of inflation, especially with gas prices and housing costs in the Park City area. The increase in the RHTA will help ease some of that burden for our teachers, many of whom commute from outside the community every day. PCA also looks forward to the new buildings and the opportunity it brings to our community. We know there will be plenty of problems and hiccups to solve over the next few years, but we are motivated to work as partners in finding solutions and creating new programs and options for students and for teachers. We know PCSD, like districts all over the country, are experiencing a teacher shortage. While there are still positions to fill, we know stakeholders are working hard to find teachers for those roles. Incentivizing highly qualified professional educators is a goal we share with the district and have ideas to make PCSD a district of choice for both new and veteran educators from around Utah and the rest of the country. We look forward to opening negotiations on the compensation package for salaries. We appreciated the school board offering the opportunity to do so. The compensation package is instrumental in recruiting new teachers, retaining veteran teachers, and demonstrating Park City's commitment as an educational leader in the state of Utah. Finally, we would like to ask the community, especially for help, as well as the board and the district. As many of you know and have heard, the nonprofit daycare housed on the Park City High School campus informed parents, teachers, and the district that it will be closing in mid-September. The announcement came Saturday evening with only a month's notice. We have many teachers who are beginning the school year with a child care crisis. This is an issue that goes beyond teachers and the district and impacts the entire Park City community, as well as other child care centers in the area. PCA is working with district leadership to try to find solutions, but given the timeline, we also ask the community for any support they can offer for teachers seeking child care. We would like to find short-term and long-term solutions and are both working on that. Thank you for the continued opportunity for teachers to be represented and supported, and we hope everyone has a fantastic first day of school tomorrow.
Thank you. And good luck tomorrow. Hi. How are you?
Good. Jen Branson, PCCA. Our new leadership meant to be here, but the crisis occurred, so I said I would begin. We have a new president and vice president at PCCA. Gina Cox, who is a driver in transportation, is the president. And Danny Clark is the vice president, also in transportation. We are also excited, like I just said to Mary, I'm so excited for the new school year. Our new slogan for PCCEA is a new day at PCCEA. We have new programs set in place and are getting up and going to really get membership more involved. And we're excited to start that. We appreciate leadership allowing us to have a table at convocation to reach out to members as well. We also would like to thank the district for the increase in residential housing and transportation allowance. That is huge, seeing that 60% of our ESPs live outside of Suffolk County, so helping them get to and from work is great. We are looking forward to the job study, the ESP job study, and we also appreciate you opening negotiations a year early to attract and retain our current ESPs. And we are also excited to help find solutions as we are moving through construction and looking forward to the school year.
Thank you. Thank you so
Thank you.
much.
Back tomorrow.
Mr. Tanner.
Good afternoon, everyone. This is the operations update for 6th of August 22. Start with our COVID environment that we're looking at. The county is still in a medium transmission level, which is no different than we were at high early summer. So our protocol is going to mirror what the county is saying, hey, this is an endemic problem in the population. We're going to manage it just like any other disease. Of course, we're going to take precautions and add mitigations if it spikes. But for right now, we're just going to keep tabs on it and watch it. So the district has a COVID nurse who is a single point of contact now with a grant-funded COVID nurse at the county level. So those two should be talking to coordinate and standardize any procedures that may come down the pipe in the state or the county. There's currently no mechanism at the state level to impose a mask mandate, so we don't anticipate that coming down anytime soon. But all of our behind-the-scenes mitigation things are still in place. In fact, we added a new one this year. I think you remember me mentioning at the end of last year, we had a grant for air purifiers. So we got 700 of those. So every office, every professional that wants to get that will get one, in addition to our new classrooms. So those are nice, but we'll still keep pushing a lot of air for buildings, still keep filtering it, still UV treating it, and ionizing it. So all those things are helping us out. And we have just a ton of PPE out. With 10,000 tests, we have 10,000 KN95 masks. So we're ready to go. We need to flip the switch, and all that stuff is here. Our COVID nurse is taking over managing all the inventory for us, make sure we get good numbers and get them in schools. So we're real confident in that process as it's matured over the last 2 years. The district is taking a common sense approach this year to COVID. Just saying, hey, you guys have been living with this for 2 years. You know it. If you feel sick, stay home. If you're sick, stay home until you do better. If you see somebody in a classroom that appears to be sick, get them to the office. Those kinds of things. And we're also going to follow the COVID guidance that is offered to us by the CDC for the parent calls and says, hey, my kid had symptoms or yesterday was tested positive. We can enter the data into a recommended CDC protocol that says, okay, the recommendations that come back in 3 days, 4 days, 5 days. So that's the procedures we're going to be following as we push through our COVID nurse. The questions have come up about monkeypox. We're monitoring that not internally but through the county. So if some kind of mitigation becomes necessary within the district, we hope that it doesn't. We'll take directions from the county. Well, we're obviously watching the numbers closely for any signs of any disease acceleration and the tightening the protocol as we it all does, but that's very popular. From a buildings and grounds perspective, obviously we got construction either underway or about to get underway at 4 of our 6 schools right now. And all the safety mitigations that are required in what we saw there in place, including all of our exits, ADA compliance, all those kinds of things to keep the schools as safe as possible. We have Mocha, our owner's representative, here tonight to give us a good picture overlay of the projects and some of the headwinds we're facing and some of the successes we've been experiencing. We do have a construction traffic management plan in place that's been distributed through the schools to push out to parents. It's been in the park record. We've got it to the police departments, the county, and the local police department, as well as PC transportation. So we'd like to get that spread well. It's also on our district website that talks about in detail which schools will be doing. We're just about finishing up on $4 million in summer capital projects, if that wasn't enough work. And so Todd's busy putting the, in fact, the stripers are out in the parking lots to treasure the pole as we speak. He's ready for tomorrow. The Eccles catwalk will go to construction here in less than a week, on 22nd of August, and be out of condition for about 6 weeks. We deconflicted that with construction and with Parks Institute. As I mentioned, all behind the scenes code limitations are still in place that we talked about. And the schools are clean and ready for students and staff. So a big thank you to Todd Hansen and his team for pulling that quite the remarkable task this summer, especially. Transportation, I met with the drivers this morning. We had most of our drivers returned. They seemed happy with the announcements and the comments and potentially rolling the contracts. We've got a big group of drivers. And we're happy to say we're going to be able to cover all of our regular transportation routes with the numbers. We do have to pull back a little bit. We'll be pulling back on some of the support from our after school program, and those will be called as audibles as people call them sick. We currently have 5 open contracts, though, one for one big contract group, 4 for local routes, and after school it's up also. So we're going to be scrambling to fill. Right now we've got the folks, dedicated folks to help us do that. Our driver dispatcher, unfortunately, was out for 6 weeks with a medical issue, and her duties are split across from the Red Express office staff there. So that's a little bit technical for us. But we've got one driver in the pipeline who will start soon, and another that we just identified, and 2 medics with the team. A couple of neat things that we've done. We're just about to install our second lift over in the bus garage. We completed the driveway lake area, and the director office was rebuilt this summer. We had a new mechanic to help us. We had 3, we went down to 2, now we're back up to 3. We're taking the white fleet, all the non-bus vehicles back under the transportation department for all of the training and repair. Air HEPA filtration and UV treatment units installed in 20 buses. We're going to get return back to space available transport once the numbers settle down. We get good idea of how many people are in 20 buses. We're talking dispersed between how many people are eligible, how many people show up, and it changes based on the weather. So we take the best guess at how many spaces we could block off for space available people. We did submit for an electrical vehicle infrastructure grant. So if we're lucky, we get the opportunity to have 2 electric buses on site. See how we work with our claim and all that. So that's in the works. And I'm happy to support the transportation fleet is ready to safely transport kids. And again, thank you to Rich Eddington and his team for pulling that on. Child nutrition services, we continue to have staffing challenges. We cooks at Jeremy Trailside. We're going to have some managers out temporarily at Jeremy and Pepper. So unfortunately, from what John said, the applicant holds is not just after. We've now had some openings available since spring, and we had 2 applicants in the last 6 months. So while we have staffing adequate to cover most students now, if we lose more folks, it's going to be a critical situation in staffing in the students. As you all know, the USDA free meal waiver ended last year and has been communicated to the parents. There's been some concern that there's balances on the books prior that we transferred. John's working to ensure that make sure that that's taken care of. All the suppliers report that we're still going to experience the same supply chain issues that we had last year, but CNS worked through that successfully last year. Sure. Despite all these challenges, John reports that the morale is high. I think that's a lot to do with him being in the trenches whenever he needs to and being out of schools. He really does a great job of leading that group. And again, as with the other departments, I have to say that we're ready to feed the kids, ready for school tomorrow. Big thank you to John and his team. Human resources, this is probably the busiest time of the year for them as they wrap up hiring, recruiting, screening applicants, onboarding new staff. They did institute the new video interviewing process through a tool called Spark, where the applicant can contribute to a digital profile, and then the people who are looking at the candidate can do it on their times that fits in their schedule. So that's about the process. Recruiting efforts continue, and many positions have been filled, but as you heard Mary say, we still have 16 licensed positions open, 16, but we're in the process of still recruiting. Mediations are in place, but we do have any shortfalls in the classroom where the children will take. We do have chronic shortages, as I mentioned, in the child nutrition services, transportation, the aquatic area, and some coaches, which we're working to overcome. And as you heard, the coaches mentioned, we're works of concurrence, 2 contracts earlier this year, year 3, position 4, to help meet some of the demands of the cost of living. But again, big thank you to Dr. Shep Swanson and his team for that. On the security front, we had Uvalde happen at the end of the year. The big takeaway from there is that the perpetrator entered the building from unlocked exit or unlocked door. So it's been an emphasis of ours to make sure that we're putting things in place to make sure its doors are closed. I've talked with each one of the principals individually to ensure they have a select member after school starts to walk the perimeter and tell them to the doors, make sure they're shut. We've also took advantage of the transportation instruction at high school. We had a chronic problem where kids were propping open doors on the north and west sides of the school. Now with the construction being in place, it's not going to be a problem issue. We're using that issue to force the kids to desire the doorways. We're also being more aggressive in putting screeners on doors. You've probably seen these at department stores. There's more, but you press on the panic bar, and if you weren't authorized, if it was an unauthorized exit, it would be alarm. So this is open to solve the store issue. We work through the traffic flows, the bus flows, the pedestrian flows, parent flows, for the traffic management. It's been communicated through all the sources that have been with the Summit County Unified Dispatch for the Police Department. I think last spring they were talking about bringing the instant alert system for our teachers, where any teacher in the county can press a button, dispatch show them it's coming from, take out a yes or should respond to. We've got initial indications that the county has picked out that they want to award this contract to. We had a survey go out last Christmas, around Christmas, that talked about, hey, teachers, what do you think about these ideas for security business? So, working back with some pretty big positives, and we're process those trainings in place. The safety committee will continue its great work this year with the state meeting October. But that's where we're at. I can probably say the district is ready to open doors tomorrow. Hopefully this year. We are a little concerned about the traffic flows, and especially Germany. I'm sorry, Poland and traffic. But we'll have personnel out there to help us teach folks in the traffic patterns, and hopefully we can find some sympathy. So that's what that.
As far as the 16 licensed positions that are still up, do we have people in the pipeline for that? I mean, I know, and it's a national issue, right? Like it's headline news every morning when you turn it on, whether it's Big Show or KSL at night with every district. But
some of them aren't teachers, like for example, one of them is the CAO. Yeah. So those duties are split between Lindsay Huntsman and Tracy Evans this year. So they have a crosswalk of how they're doing that, and Campbell's stepping up. So we have kind of that team approach. Carolyn Simon stepped in and taken some additional things. Summer roles we haven't had before, like those 3 deans, so again, a classroom's not gonna notice that difference, right? One interventionist at one of the schools, so a regular classroom's not gonna notice that. So you won't notice the administrators or the interventionists in quite the same way as you would a classroom teacher, right? So the priority is always the classroom facing, first, and then the supportive staff come back after that.
So of the 16 that are classroom teachers.
There were 16 licensed positions that were.
How many are classroom teachers?
Now we're
Doctors
teaching
are-
doctors works over there.
So we have the 8th grade math and treasure. We have a CT business at the high school. We have a science position, but that one is in the process of being filled. So probably a week for relocation, 10 days. And then we have a 5th grade of parlays, which is a class size reduction. So it's, they have a backup plan. And those are the only teaching positions outside of the administrative and the support positions that the superintendent mentioned.
So really, that's good news, right? Good news. I think we have a lead on CTE.
We do, and we've got some great backup plans, so we do not believe that students will be hindered on the first day of school because of the backup plans that we have in place with coverage.
What was the issue? Was it a lack of applicants or people took other jobs, or what was the?
We've had 3 late notices within the last 2 weeks. For varying reasons. I believe one was to do something completely different than education. Another one was a job within education. And the third one was personal.
So once we identify somebody, you can't just start the next day, right? They've got to go through and have a background fingerprint check. We've got to verify that their certification and licensure is up to date and valid. So we have to do some back end things to get them started. So it can take a few days. But that's where the backup has come in. So we have teachers who have already identified and supported with loss of prep, that they're going to step in and do some of the sections that are open, and people have really been great about studying to help. And they know that that's temporary because people are identified. They're just not the majority.
What about those admin spots? Are we not getting applicants or?
Those
CAOs?
Right, CAO, we've interviewed like 15 different people, but we haven't had zero in on the person, right? So we don't have current new applicants. We had to in the pool without the deep curriculum background. Right? For the deans, I think because it's a new job, people are still trying to kind of figure that out. We have one person in the pipeline, but internal, but we would want to backfill them before we move over into that other role.
So you'll still have to be looking for roles for you?
Yeah, they'll still stay posted. People move it all the time. So you never know.
What's our strategy around the jobs that we continue to struggle with? Drastically increase the compensation for CNS. CNS is a problem. That's why half the mountain wasn't open, right? Half the lodges weren't open at Park City District, right? So what's our? So you have bus drivers have been a problem for 3 or 4 years. CNS has been a problem for it's that long. What's our long-term strategy there? We're just gonna start doubling wages.
Well, I think we're at that point, but I mean, the reality is that this is an expensive place to live, and the competition is more than we're paying our people. And so while there are some benefits for the school district, a person's going to walk with it, it's also that they feel that it's a reasonable trade. So I mean, you can't blame the employees, and you can't blame the school district if we don't have a lot of flexibility to go down by an annual budget. But I think our next place to try to fix this is with the compensation structure that may emerge from the next round of negotiations, which we're excited.
So, and we've talked about that work study. So have we started that? Where are we with that?
Really, we're
Workforce.
working on recruiting
And
and
hiring
hiring this
for
summer, and then as the school year gets started, that's when you write the RFP for the work study. But we have talked to companies who are very interested in doing that work and will respond to that bid, so that's good news.
Yeah, we're hoping to put out an LOI for those services to look at the appropriate categorization of all of our work categories, and not only external compensation comparisons, but also internal job title and responsibility comparisons. So we don't have one person called a director with responsibilities up here, the person with direct responsibilities down here. Adequately titled people with job responsibilities out there are based upon title compensation. But that work is something that we haven't gotten to yet. It's in the hopper. Something that I understand this has to cover this year. And so
We had scheduled that for this fall, so we're on target for that. The other thing that's very different now than we've ever had before is it's always been that school districts compare against school districts. But we're in a new kind of realm where you're not just comparing against school districts. So this will be the first time we've done a study where we may look at the market, right? So if you're working in nutrition, are you comparing the lodges, the resorts, the hotels, and child nutrition? We've not done that before. It's usually just school to school. Same thing, transportation. It's usually just district to district. We're going to look at, what about the different, lodge, transport, and all the different, the competitive industries up here, which could include McDonald's, could include Smith's, could include, Vail. So we're going to have some other comparisons for you, which we may have had before. So that's a different strategy, and I think all school districts are going to have to go through that, not just us, right? That's just a different way of looking at the market and availability of people take on licensed and unlicensed work. But I think flexibility in the workplace, I mean, lots of the things we've talked about, lots of the things you all brainstormed last January with our educators and our staff association and the admin team, all those ideas that you guys brought up, we have over 50 ideas on that grid, right? So work flexibility is huge, very hard to do in the education profession. We found some creative things that are great. So again, we just have to keep.
Here's a question. Do we know yet if we're at risk of losing anyone because of this childcare situation?
I don't, Joe, do you have any numbers on that?
You're like, no more than
Yeah. That kind of hurts some-
I mean, realistically, you've got a few teachers right now that are saying, the reality is that they can't afford to, there's nothing to go to, and even if they could, that it's double what they were paying. So is it worth it for them to continue to work? Just depends on, certain situations, and everybody's situation is different. But yes, those conversations have been
the first decade of my teaching career. Don't want to age myself, but for the first decade, as my husband and I were having kids, again, we have 4 kids, we realized personal choice, right? Family choice. But I literally was working for the years of service and my insurance. That's why I was working. Everything was going to the mortgage or the child care, and it was an addition. It was like a mortgage payment, and that was way back, right? My oldest is 30, so this is long ago. But it was that way as a teacher. I was working more for I wanted to keep my years of service. I'm an English teacher, so there are always lots of English teachers. Back then there were. So you wanted to keep your foot in the door, in other words, but you weren't.
Well, the issue is there isn't a lot of teachers, so that is the bigger and scarier thing right now. So
What's the, obviously structurally we're looking at the stuff, right? But I'd say we're in a crisis mode right now. So what are the tools that are available to us to solve the immediate issues that we have? So CNS, transportation, sounds like childcare.
We're actually in much better shape than I thought we were going to be. When we left in June, we're actually in much better shape than I thought we'd be. Your bus drivers, you got all the routes covered. Last year, I don't know that we can say that for most of the year. So actually, I think you're in good shape, better than you were with child nutrition service. Brooke and John were in those kitchens almost every day throughout the pandemic. So they weren't just leaving the department; they were in the department working. So that I think is going to be interesting. We've had people kind of morph over from the hospital, they go back to the hospital kitchens. I don't know how to convince them to come over and stay. I don't know if that's work hours. I don't know if that's the pacing is comfortable. So I think the child nutrition is going to be big. Child care, we'll talk about a little bit more.
The RHG, definitely, the RHG 37 helped. Got some of the people's pockets, and I think study coupled with opening negotiations earlier to increase compensation probably would be a nice, another big step. You know, as Joe mentioned, we talked about a bunch of strategies that in the modern workplace could help us out with improving efforts and retention. You know, just have to start looking through that list, the best that we can do to make sure those things address some of these critical shortages, chronic critical shortages. Right? This is not getting that.
I think some of the other strategy, it sounds far-fetched, I realize as I say it even, but hopefully people will somewhat have their heads. I think we've got to talk to legislators personally, like legislation wise, it's not an instant fix. But if we continue to say people have to have a year gap, that's kind of silly, right? If you're retiring at 30 years, why do you have to have a year gap? If the district is still contributing to the funding, but you're not drawing on the funding from that contribution, why do you care? People are coming back, right? Licensure shifts. You know, there are certain things that I think we're going to and again, pension systems and things, right? Some of those things that were real perks and kept people into the field from the longevity standpoint are gone, and we're going to have to start talking nationally, not just as a state here, but nationally. We are going to have to talk about those things, drawing people back into our professions, because that was part of the huge draw, was the security of that, right? Security of a secure pension, good benefits, solid benefits, you know, at a livable wage. And in most places, a teacher and staff are not on workforce housing. They're typically middle class. That's not the experience, right? Right now, the way housing is. So I think some legislative conversation has to happen about those kinds of things. But I do think, I mean, in Utah, like how many states have you guys ever heard of like providing an extra week for teachers to compensate them for the work they know that they're doing over the summer? That was pretty amazing, right? So we got to kind of champion those things that are happening. That's like a 2% increase that we plan on, you know, being able to give to our teachers for the work that they do, right?
Regarding admin, are you going to change strategy on trying to? I know that outward facing for students, we've got people in the places, but I know support for teachers. Not having admin continue to cover so much and do so much without burning out. So is there a change in strategy that CAO, like some of those ones that aren't necessarily wage, are we having just a shortage because we don't have people who want to live in the city, or what have you learned over the time?
Some of the feedback has been pay, even for admins, right?
Okay.
Pay. I reached out to some people just to, again, query interest, not to promise anything, but query interest. A lot of it was, it was someone from Alabama, interestingly, I can't afford to move there, like just to do the move. I can't afford $120,000 salary based on what I'm currently making in Alabama. So I was like, oh shoot, you know, so we know that that was some of it. And some of it is, it's just finding not only the people, but the right people, right? You don't just want to fill a spot to fill it. You want to make sure you're going to have somebody who's dedicated and committed to the work that we need to do, because we're in a certain place as a district, right? We have a certain part of our framework built. We want to keep that going. So I'm actually really impressed with our internal team who have stepped up, who have said we've got the desire, we want to keep growing in our district, we want to keep having pathways. So I think that's awesome. I'm excited about that. And like I said, we're still kind of sorting through some applicants too, which is good.
Some of the strategies, Joe mentioned that some legislative relief, like in other states, as a person seeking their license, should they allow them with a high school degree to continue in the state or something like that, or they actually get a license and then those kinds of items. Some people talk to legislators.
Yeah, but it's, people find us in all kinds of ways. I also have to interview people. A lot of times it is just, searching employment, but, our website, but it's a lot of point of contact with a lot of people talking to other people and getting a referral. So we do have a lot of, one-on-one invitations that are coming through, or family members, extended family, relocating. So that's been interesting. So we have a lot of word of mouth. That seems to be a popular way of growing people.
Thanks,
Anything
Mr. Patel. Thanks. We'll move on to Dr. Gilday.
Sure. All right, we are at the 22-23 school year, and as we look at our work together, our kindergartners are the graduating class of 2035. I shall retire. I really think that way. But for our 3-year-olds, it's 2037. We're already seeing in our preschool kids graduate in 2037. If you can even imagine that world. It's unbelievable. But we continue to cycle back and really refocus on our mission and vision statement. So inspiring and supporting all students equitably is at the heart of everything we are trying to do every day. We're trying to have every student achieve their academic and social potential. And when we think about our why, we look at the graduation day, right? We look at the hats being thrown and how every single one of our students crosses that stage and is going into their next step, whether that is career, workplace, or military or college ready to go. And lots of good able to support that we talked about this spring. I also really appreciate the whole child, safe, supported, engaged, challenged, and healthy. If we are making our decisions aligned to that, I don't think we're ever making a mistake. So I appreciate our vision and our work towards that. Our strategic pillars have stayed the same as those on the board when we think about strategic initiatives and strategic plans, but we also add fiscal responsibility and operational excellence to our goals areas because, of course, they're really important for times of construction and navigating the times we are currently. I think as a district, if we were looking at just 3 specific points that we would want to focus our work around, is that our collective work is to ensure our staff and our students are safe. That safety is first, and I think Mike does a great job talking about that each month with security initiatives. That we are ensuring their achievement through their academic pursuits, and that they have lots of opportunities where we're removing barriers, we're removing obstacles, and we're ensuring that they have a top-notch chance at education. So we have some goals that we're talking about. I introduced them very, very briefly in June. I'm going to introduce them very briefly again tonight. We as a board team, hopefully we will together look at these because our strategies under these help us reach our mission and vision. So as a leadership team, when we're talking about teaching and learning and leadership, we are really looking at preparing all students for career, college, life-ready success, and those are one of your top outcome metrics in your high school year after year. So that is something that has been a big success point for Park City High School, and we all center on that, getting our kids through with secondary readiness skills. So our teachers are aligned to that, our staff is aligned to that, and we're trying to keep that student-centered focus. And some of the ways we are doing that is with you'll hear all the different acronyms, right? Education has lots of acronyms, but every one of the schools has a positive behavior intervention and supports program. Similar to MTSS is academic and behavioral. So you'll see at the high school, this is their new little logo right here where they're safe, prepared, compassionate, and hardworking. So everybody in the school centers themselves as adults and the children work and students, young adults working towards these redefined readiness components, right? So we care about the outcomes, but we also care about them being hardworking, compassionate, caring individuals. Also with leadership, this puts together a lot of what you see in the mission and vision into kind of that action goal step. So we will promote safe, supportive, equitable, and inclusive school learning environments for students, staff, and patrons, including assurances of good sportsmanship, digital citizenship, and creating a kind, positive, inviting, again, the word inclusive, right, school environment that cultivates belonging and engagement. So unless the kids feel engaged, they don't feel connected to their school. So the high school theme this year is actually engaged and really trying to get the kids kind of re-inspired. We've had some time online, we've had some time navigating the pandemic. Now they really want to get the kids just back to enjoying themselves as students and athletes and artists and musicians and really engage in the school experience. We continue our work on the equity front. We'll talk a little bit more about that. Really trying, and again, the kids have led the way because the kids are inspired by having an environment and a culture that they are proud of. Academically, we're continuing to work on the Utah Portrait of the Graduate. It's again a state initiative, but that too, it's saying we're looking broader than just the test score. We're looking at 21 different knowledge, skills, dispositions, characteristics that we want to look at for learners, so that by the time they leave high school, they can have a beautiful, personalized kind of portfolio, that they've created and that they're ready to show college or military advancement or career, that they've made competency-based progress, that they've been at learning pathways. And again, I think as a district and board, all of you have supported, right, some really fun programming, construction pathway, which we never had before, or at least not to the extent that we will. Aviation, the unmanned flight, getting a certificate to do a drone, we never had that, right? So some of the aviation as a pathway, pretty amazing. And we have a culinary arts teacher that is truly an artist, and I think is really excited about the different pathway development that they've been able to do. So again, even during the pandemic, even during construction, lots of focus on the academic framework and how to inspire and support all kids. And this is just a visualization of how the state has the portrait of graduate competencies. In the teaching and learning division, we're going to keep on working with our high quality professional development and on the instructional framework. Again, that centers us as a district. We know that what everybody's looking for when they walk through a classroom. We're also beginning certification in letters, which is not a program, but it's actually a deep training, almost like a graduate degree in the science of reading. And that aligns to the early literacy plan. It also aligns to the work that all K-3 teachers will be doing on those Friday learning days. We also have plans for 4th and 5th grade teachers and all the way up through the grades. So that PD is planned and it's strategically aligned to a state goal for us, but also we know it'll make us stronger in our student outcomes. We know that when our parents were growing up, they could play and go to school and have a job and retire. But we know the new world is that you play, you go to school, and then you work, but you learn the whole way through. And recalibrating and relearning and redesigning, it's all part of this new world. As I was able to talk with new teachers this year as we launched, and then our staff at convocation, we really want to focus on, we don't need a perfect teacher, but we do need a happy teacher. So that's where things like the child care center, right, kind of catch us by surprise, and we're going to do everything we can to support our teachers in finding safe and adequate care, but also keeping ourselves in that state of positive emotion, because our kids can act and learn better when you're in a positive space. So very excited about that. From an operational lens, we're all working through our construction, and we have some goals related to this. Keeping up our standards of excellence in budget and financial management, which Todd has proven again and again with the meritorious budget report, which is additional external review of the budget process, which actually indicates that we're aligning our resources towards student needs. So really important outcome there. We talked a little bit about those job studies, and that was planned for all projects, so we're looking forward to that and outcome of that. We're also very interested in continuing to build relevant, sustainable 21st century learning tools. We have a wonderful library at this point, inventory of all the different resources that teachers have access to. The tech team has done a wonderful job by monitoring that, they monitor usage, impact, and we've been trying to start saving our some of these investments. From our safe and inclusive schools, which is equitable practices, we are going to be looking at some policy that exists out there in the world and see which policies can align to our community's way of thinking about moving equitable practices forward. That's going to be timeline out this fall. We are commissioning an external equity assessment, looking at any of those barriers, any of those successes that we have, so that we can keep building great environment. We want to remove barriers, we want to increase student belonging, we want to broadcast student voice, and we want to have the belief that every student can reach their potential, but we want to see if there are any hiccups in either our policies or practices that prevent that. We are ensuring our USDE state required training modules roll out this year. That's a big state goal. And then we will have quarterly meetings to review data. So we'll have kind of a template to be able to see and demonstrate what things are moving, what things need more attention. So this, I actually also have a little action plan that I'll get out to you, so you can kind of see these things broken up with actions. From a secondary realignment standpoint, there will be a staff participation input survey that's going out the 23rd-ish, And then staff, our secondary staff, as our elementary staff are working on that letters training. Secondary staff is going to be doing some work in that secondary realignment. Make sure we plan for it so that we're at the end of the 2 years when construction is done, things move seamlessly into the 6, 8, 9, 12 alignment pattern. Work teams will be meeting monthly on that. The secondary team has planned that out. That's amazing. You know, they're doing great thinking and work in this because as we know, they're going to build in the future education model for Park City School District. So we'll look forward to some updates from them throughout the year. They'll have a mid-year and an end-year progress update from them. As we look at that child care center, we do want to acknowledge that it's a standalone nonprofit that's been a wonderful partner, right? Nobody is arguing. It's been a wonderful partner for child care for many, many years, decades, in fact. The center did inform us of a staffing shortage of the toddler room teacher on July 28th, and the steps they've been taking since March to try to fill that. So we heard about that on July 28th, but then between August 11th and 15th, the center's one board member did kind of surface the fact that she's very concerned about the long-term financial viability of the center, the staffing, and what are the future plans for that standalone nonprofit. So we have been working diligently with community partners, looking at grant funding, alternative funding, ways that we can try to help or support. Todd has a meeting with the current director to try to look at all the financial projections. We have meetings with PC Todd's leadership to see if maybe that's a partnership we want to explore. So with our wonderful community up here with the Early Childhood Alliance, with our PCEF partners, everybody's kind of rallying together and trying to figure out what we can do as quickly as possible to bolster and support care for our staff's children, because as you all know, it's always been our intent to have the program, whether it was in Jeremy, whether it's in the high school, whether it's at the learning center, it was always intended to have child care support, but this has always been with a standalone nonprofit. So if that model is going to change, it'll be something we'll talk about, right? If it becomes a benefited item instead, if it becomes a partnership with the community provider, if it becomes a partnership with a private provider, all that will have to be.
Can I ask you a question?
This is like the end. So
Okay.
we're good.
Did we have any sort of contract with the organization?
Just a memorandum of agreement, but Todd actually was able to go back and find things from way back and like a memorandum of understanding, yes.
So there was nothing
Just to
contractual.
let them use our facility.
Okay,
Yeah,
so
so they
nothing-
had the use of the facility for
Okay.
free the whole time.
Right.
Yeah.
Under the condition that school districts employees had preferential treatment in place.
Got
And that was the.
And since this is all happening so fast, and there's people who have decided, coming back to work, if now in childcare, do we have any sort of a Band-Aid bridge solution until we figure out what we can do?
I think we're trying to figure out how big the sore is, and what size the Band-Aid is.
That's a good answer. Okay,
Right, so the center committed to open up until at least September 19th, which does give us a few weeks.
Right.
Which is better than closing Friday,
Right.
right? So we do have that little buffer of time. To be,
What's their deficit to keep them open for the year? That was
That's what we're trying to determine. It's a matter of personnel as well as the fiscal need. What exactly is that?
how many personnel is needed to keep it open?
it depends how many kids are enrolled. So for instance, in July, when I got the email that said the top of the teacher, they had posted since March, but hadn't had candidates to fill, that would have maybe closed just that room. So that would have impacted 6 to 7. So it kind of depends what age group, because the ratios are based on that state ratios. We have very low ratio for infants, a little bigger room for toddlers, a little bigger room for 3-year-olds. And so on. So it depends, but they have had 12 teachers up to 16, depending on the year.
I'll get more details, but rough estimates are something around 10. which is what we needed was.
And the kids that are in the room are employee kids, but then we've also opened it up. Is that right?
It had been employees, municipal worker, children, municipal workers, firemen, policemen, city workers, and then in open spaces, could go to anybody in the community.
Because I'd be curious to dig in, is, you know, this is an amenity for our employees, right? We're now causing hardship, and we're adding to our, you know, HR problem of retention. So this is a benefit to staying here because of this amazing ability to go to work and have my kid right there. I'd be curious to know how many are employee district kids and how many are municipal. And
So
because
there
if it's a smaller
There are
pool, who's supporting
17, yeah, there are
17.
17 employees,
kids,
kids, that's what kids.
Those are.
Could be
families.
multiple, yes.
17 families.
families?
Yeah, the number of children.
Okay, so 38 kids that are just employees of the school, kids that are there.
That's that we understand right now. We'll get the hard numbers here shortly.
Because back to my earlier question about what does that mean for back to work, if suddenly I don't have any place.
Have we had any other, I know you said PC Tots we're talking to, but have we had any other organizations in the town that have stepped up and said that they would be willing to help accommodate these families?
Well, part of the problem is there's a massive shortage.
No, I know, everywhere, it's a ratio issue.
And,
I just don't know, yeah, anybody.
you know, it'll be helped by us having pre-K. Once those facilities are built. And
We were able to take a couple of the 4-year-olds right into the preschool program, and the families, the staff were able to handle Friday childcare. So again, we're just like everything, right? We work just like Red Cross, we work family through family, you know, each person and see what they have.
Are we worried about those who work there right now that we do have on staff, hearing that it's closing September 19th, finding other jobs and committing to other places right now, organizations that might pay better, might do some better, so we can't ever get them back?
I think that's part of the challenge. Have already made those decisions, and that's what.
We have a few who are left,
This September 19th ending by then.
so everybody's gonna be gone. And everybody's gonna commit to other jobs.
So we're trying to have those conversations to reel them
Oh,
down.
we don't.
part of it is wage.
So you're trying to figure out how many teachers could potentially leave
Right.
due to this.
And who will stay.
Sorry, sidebar, but it's our building.
It's
Right,
only our
so
facility,
the only
right?
overhead is
Staff.
Salaries and
So-
And
supplies.
supplies and materials. for the
right,
rest
I
of this.
imagine that's pretty, right, so
We'll
to me, it
find out.
doesn't seem like, what?
We'll find out.
Yeah, we'll find out, I mean, it really has to see,
Yeah,
find out,
yeah.
to me, it's like the bigger issue is where and how much is that space, that's already taken care
Right,
Right.
and it has been. the
of.
whole
Right,
time
so
for
to
them.
me, I mean,
Yeah, I mean, you know, my view is, let's find out how much it costs to run it. You know, either direct you guys to pay it or not, right? That's the issue. And it's a,
Approaching it is-
yeah, it's a short-term
What is
look.
it?
The great news is structurally, we're creating more capacity for early childhood education in the community by being the first district in the state to have pre-K. And that solves the issue for 4 to 5-year-olds. And then hopefully that should create more capacity at PC Tots and other childcare providers from 0 to 3. But that's still a ways out. So the great news is this is a short-term issue. I think it's one of those where this is the downside, like I've talked to a bunch of people about it, this is the downside of outsourcing your on-site childcare, is that the on-site childcare provider is used, so they can go out of business. Okay, so let's figure it out, Band-Aid it, and, you know, it's great to hear, like, whenever we hear how much it is, just let us know, and, you know, we can give direction on that.
So we kind
It's pretty critical.
we kind of know from PC Tots that they're currently upside down, right, in their model. So PC Tots does have to do a good amount of fundraising to be able to
Yeah.
get into balance, right? So we kind of do that. So we understand that that could be a similar picture, right? That it's kind of upside down versus the charge. But again, mandates brought this up, or right, all of a sudden it becomes so expensive. Yep. But can you afford?
I think it's a community issue, right, which is why we have a Child Alliance, which is why the city chips in, which is why we subsidize, which is why, you know, ultimately, if we want childcare, affordable childcare in our community, it's a taxpayer issue. right? Regardless of what entity is paying for it. So,
So municipal has been wonderful, the city
Yeah.
council, people have all reached out.
yeah, I've had a couple reach out to me as well, and I think they're all willing to help. So I think the sooner we can get a number, I think the sooner people can figure out who's gonna chip in and solve it. Right? But I think, I think the message, Mary, to everyone needs to be, we're working on it, and
Yes,
the good
and
news is
so
we have a month, and we'll figure it out.
Right, so we sent out, as a matter of fact, an email this morning to all of our members saying, we're working on it, we're in contact with the district and the board, let me know, like, get a hold of us and let us know who you are, so that I can keep a list as well. So I do have a running list as well that I can share with Dr. Gilday today or later tonight. There are a few, especially in the 2 to 3 year old range, that are having trouble, but the main problem, I think, is infants. Because it's difficult to find infant care, and even those teachers that have been able to find a spot, the affordability is the problem, because it's about double.
Yeah.
And so they just can't afford that.
Yeah.
What do you need from us right now to figure out the information?
We have a list out to the director, the current directors. We have a list out of the questions that we need answered, and that we can then share with PC tots, because they need answers to the same questions, and then it gives us
Can Kathy step in as emergency director?
Yeah, I'm less worried about director as I am just the staffing and the ratios, because when you're also talking about 2 infants and 2 to 3, you're still talking about those needing the people. So any of you willing to volunteer to be, preschool teacher girl?
Can they come in my office?
Right. I was thinking
I have a
that's.
conference room,
It's
some
got a nice
dogs,
office.
I have some dogs I can play with, pens. Yeah. What about, is it, like, I saw some estimates, like 80 grand, 100 grand in
That's
terms of
about,
staffing
that's the
shortage?
current, right, that would be like, so that would be able to bolster their existing hourly rate, because that was one of their requests, right, to try to bolster that. So that was just the $4 an hour difference times how many people times
Right.
190 days or something.
And can we give them, direction, if it's that amount, we're okay with it? Is that, as we're looking into this, just because of the interest of timing, right, and calming people's anxiety down, to say, okay.
Likely it'll be grant funded, right? So
Right.
likely it would either be the education, either we would turn back our preschool allotment from PCEF and redirect it, right? So that's likely what, or the municipal.
But can we just say, like, all right, if it's 100 grand or below, we'll backstop it until we figure out the grants, so that we don't end up with people walking out.
Yeah, I think that it'll be more complicated than just a dollar amount. It's going to be workforce issues that we're gonna.
Is that
Because
Dr. Sorensen has his hand up?
we'll have to employ them, or what?
No, just to make sure we have enough people. So we
Yeah,
can walk in,
people
have
shortage is the
$100,000
issue.
check, but what if they don't have people? And what if we can't find the people either,
So we
right?
have the funding meeting.
Right.
We have to
Figure out the
we have
funding.
the funding.
We have the funding meeting.
We can figure out the funding easier.
Just speak up, Dr. Sorensen.
No, just in our conversation with the child care center, the staff that are leaving, the teachers are finding positions between $20 and $25 an hour, as what she's reporting.
Mhm.
One of the unique things will be is if grant funding comes in, as a district, we very well could lose our employees to go over there because it would be a higher wage. Because it would be those same people that are doing ESP work for us that may see, oh, $5
So you're saying
more
bus
an
drivers
hour.
could leave and go be preschool teachers?
Yeah,
Or our
so it's-
preschool teachers. I'm telling you, I love infants, birth to 9 months. I will, like any day, rock those babies. I will do.
Right, but that just shows that we're underpaying.
Yeah,
those
exactly,
jobs,
that's what
right?
I'm saying.
Just-
If you're gonna watch, we're not, right?
So it's a microcosm of a bigger challenge.
Yeah,
That it's days in the sun right now. We're not far behind.
But just to jump in, because if we do lose a bus driver to change diapers, we're not losing, an employee who doesn't now have childcare. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's a catch-22.
Yeah,
If we don't
and
provide
bus
it,
drivers need the childcare.
What's
the
that?
group that needs the check.
Right, well, I mean, whoever does, right?
Yeah.
It's like you're gonna lose no matter what, so where do you wanna lose?
So, yeah, that's,
Right?
So I
we
think
have-
the
So
direction
we'll
of the
come back
board
with-
is, this is
Figure it
an
out.
urgent matter.
Figure it out.
I think that you have our backing with whatever you need. I understand that you, and if we need to call an emergency meeting to readdress this, I think that we're all willing to be of that to make sure it happens. Dr. Sorensen?
Park City Community Foundation is bringing a meeting together. I would be surprised to see board members invited.
Yeah, it's on Monday, we're.
Yeah.
Yeah, like bringing anybody childcare in the community together to try and discuss it. It's a global
Yeah.
issue.
Yeah. we'll make
And
sure
I
that
have
we
had
have
a few-
representatives there.
I have had a few responses from people in the community that have reached out that I'll send, you know, contact info to the teachers that I know that need it.
Okay, perfect. All right, are we good? Does anybody have any other questions or, I mean, I know we have huge concerns about this, but. Okay, so because of timing, it's 5 o'clock and that's when we have public comment. Normally, do we have anybody that is here for public comment? And if so, I need you to fill out the blue sheets. So while you guys fill out these blue sheets, if you guys wouldn't mind if I skip back. Do you think that we have facilities updates will take? Should I just go to policies for posting? How about we go to policies for posting? So can I get a motion to post the following policies? Policy 7105, professional development. Policy 9005, curriculum development and management. Policy 9010, curriculum requirements for grades 6 through 8. Policy 9030, alternative language services. Policy 9035, instruction at home or in healthcare facility. Policy 9040, field trips. Policy 9045, district sponsored athletic and academic 6 through 12 student travel. Policy 9046, competitive sports clubs. Policy 9050, instructional and library media materials selection policy. Policy 9076, academic acceleration. Policy 9090, graduation requirement adult education. Policy 10001, bullying, cyberbullying, abusive conduct. Policy 10011, services for homeless students. Policy 10020, truancy. Policy 10035, concurrent enrollment in early college admissions, and policy 1020, reporting child abuse, renumber 3011.
I make a motion to follow the post policies as stated.
Perfect. Any discussion? Perfect. All in favor of posting? Aye. That's unanimous. Perfect. And then let's just go to policy to retire. Can I get a motion to approve retirement of policy 7170, educator evaluation?
So I make a motion to retire policies.
Any discussion? Perfect. All in favor? Aye. All right, let's go back to public comments. Okay, the Board of Education wants to hear live input from community members at our meetings in order to respect and preserve the time allotted to each presenter on the agenda. Each speaker is limited to 3 minutes. Speakers representing the group are limited to 5 minutes. If you wish to address the board, please read and complete. Done. When you come up to the rostrum, please just state your name clearly for the record. The Board of Education expects that all public comment be polite, respectful, and accurate. Please refrain from specifically identifying any personnel. Personnel issues are not appropriate for public comment, therefore no such comments will be allowed. Perfect. I have Shannon to join us.
Good afternoon, Shannon Hollowell, Shannon. As we are undertaking our nice Park City High School addition, the construction fences have gone up and blocking access for the kids who park in the LDS church lot as overflow parking.
says we're losing parking spaces anyway, and we've got a lot of congestion and, you know, construction areas and traffic. Living in Park Meadows, that's a lot that my kids always use to park to, but right now, since the security access is only door number 16 and door number 19, if you park in the LDS lot, your choice is to go all the way up to the Wells Fargo and around the corner, or go all the way the other direction behind at the Eccles Center and go up the side. So unless we open the doors to Dozier Field to allow some kind of cut through from the LDS lot to that side number 6 door, you're gonna have students, nobody's gonna want to park in those extra spots, and we're already short parking spots as it is. So I'd like to bring that to attention, and I know we've got construction people here and stuff, and I just don't know if that will stop through. Thank you.
Thanks, Shannon. We'll get an update on that for you too, as well. Dan, if you'd like to join us. Is it Gallery? I'm sure. Gallery, sorry.
Hey everybody, I'm Dan Gallery. Thanks for having me. I just want to start off by saying I appreciate the concern and urgency you're putting into the child care issue. My family and I have been significantly impacted by the closure. My wife and I are both full-time school district employees. We actually met here in 2013 when we were hired. So we welcomed our baby this past May. When we found out we were expecting the young to get us as soon as we could, we enrolled this past spring in the beginning of August 15th. We were notified about the closure this past Sunday, and it's going to start September 19th. The news is shocking. It leaves us with very little time to find a manageable childcare solution for our family. So we initially thought we had more time. My wife would have until October. That isn't the case because we have to share the FMLA 12 week. And we really appreciate that Park City offers 6 weeks paid leave, but that leaves me with 4 weeks of paid leave and with my wife with 8. So we're just in a really tight spot. And if there's a wait list on it, but you know, what you guys are talking about finances, the Park City daycare is $1,200 a month. Anything outside of that is more than double. So in the flexibility of the Park City child care offers teachers is something that isn't parallel anywhere else for teachers. And as both being employees, it's pretty crucial for us. And it's a huge financial burden to pay for June and July. So we really appreciate everything that Park City has done, the city, the school district, you know, and City County when it comes to the city workers. But living in Park City can be out of reach and childcare isn't affordable. And that's where we're at. So I just really, you know, thank you for your time and consideration, and just know that families are hurting.
Congratulations on the baby. Yes, Lori and I are thinking we're just gonna put a little one of those like pack and plays right between our offices, and we're pretty excited. So, you know,
We can do it.
we're fans.
Thank you.
We're
No.
fans.
Thank
Dan, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. And please know it is urgent on our list, and every one of us sitting up here is a parent, and we hear you and we understand. So,
And working parents in many cases as well, so we do know everything that's facing.
okay.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Okay, facilities update.
Good afternoon. JD is going to give us an update on each of the schools and the things that are happening in each one. But I wanted to take just a minute and follow up with what Michael Tanner said. Safety is the highest priority, and we've taken steps to make sure that all the schools at the various stages of construction are safe and ready for students to start school. And that, I think, is a result of the district putting forth great effort, the contractor putting forth great effort to make sure it's best. With that, I'll turn the time over to JD and he'll walk us through the schools.
So I'm gonna start at Jeremy Ranch. Work that's been completed there, it's selected site demo. They started the building pad preparation, the sewer lateral extension from the school has been completed. Per the Summit County directive, construction is currently on hold. And is falling behind schedule. District has submitted a complete conditional use permit application, and has accepted that. The school district is on the Snyder Hill Basin Planning Commission agenda for August 23rd. I don't know whether that is going to have any feedback or if it's going to go through with our signature for August 23rd. It's a complete application, and I'm still continuing to go back and forth with them with items that are very close. So, work is planned to resume once the conditional use permit is approved. So, on to McPullen, and if you ask me, I'm stopping between those. Sure.
Did we not have the proper permitting before we broke ground, or we did, and I'm not clear on that?
So there's some back and forth with state code, right? And that is what's the big question, is whether or not you have to have those permits. And so, for instance, an example is there's an existing conditional use permit on the high school. There is an existing conditional use permit on McPullen. Jeremy Ranch falls in the county. It so happens that they've changed their zoning over the last 25 years, multiple times. And because of that, whatever permits you did have or didn't have aren't there, or so for there, you have the option of amending the conditional use permit. There isn't one that exists.
So there never was one that existed that you had met.
No,
I know.
it was, but they're deciding that it's not, which is a unique view versus the rest of the state. And
It was. I mean, pretty much the rest of the state recognizes the school district's authority. Summit County has taken that at a different direction.
they decided that the overwhelming support of the bond taxpayers is not sufficient.
And has there been any other buildings or schools within the county that has experienced the same thing, or is it isolated to our school building?
Yeah, I don't know.
I'd be curious.
My understanding is that we're all very similar in updates on our schools for years. So nobody's like North Summit or South Summit hasn't updated their districts either to be.
But Park City, for example, did require it.
Right. Park City is working in the more of a traditional manner that we find working
In
in
the best interest of the taxpayers.
Another example is you don't pull a traditional building, like if you were building a house or commercial development or something like that. It's governed by the district themselves.
Right.
We have inspectors and we have people who do all that work, but it's not, you're not calling up the city or the county inspector to come over and say, check this out.
It's generally done concurrently too.
Correct.
They work together, so.
So what is your hope of this resolving on the 23rd?
I believe it'll go through.
Mhm.
So
And we'll obviously that doesn't.
you would know, yes, the one problematic thing with the conditional use permit is they can't put conditions on. Now, there are certain things by state code that they cannot touch,
Right.
but they could come back and
So
say,
it should have.
right, yeah.
Wow, okay, thanks for
So if
sending
it
that.
goes well on the 23rd, we resume construction on the 24th.
We are on the docket for the 23rd. We do have all of our information.
I checked, double checked again this morning, but they sent me a confirmation letter last week. And like I said, there's still a couple questions on a few things, but I'm comfortable with that back and forth with them over on.
Thanks.
On to McPullen, so slight demolitions going on over there. The building pad preparation is ongoing right now. I don't know if you guys drive by there and look, we've had some issues with the soil over there. We counted a little bit of garbage and trash that was buried. It's been there for quite a while. So we've been removing that.
Like what kind of garbage?
Well, there was a full-on section of brick wall that was there the other day. That's a lot of wood, a lot of plastic.
These treasures?
I haven't had time to go through it.
Just garbage, not
Just gold bars. but I think-
It's like from
Used to be a dairy.
What?
It used to be a dairy, Treasure Mountain in that area,
Oh,
and farmer there had a.
okay, okay.
Yeah, the problem is you can't build
No.
that. Sure, because it lots and.
So we've been removing that, over excavating that and encouraging the structural fill. The geo period, which is part of the footing of the foundation, will start this Friday over there.
And you're gonna get it all done before the snow flies, is that what happens?
I'll be back.
What? Why don't you got
Well,
on that one?
If
That could
when
be
the
next
snow's
week.
gonna fly, then we can have the
Okay,
conversation.
just curious,
So-
because that's a pretty hard state. Yeah.
And that's part of the problem, right? You just
Right,
don't ever know
right.
what's gonna happen. The district is working collaboratively right now with Park City for any construction related items. We've had several meetings with them, and they've kind of spelled out what they wanted, and we're cooperating with that and providing them what they need as well. So like I mentioned, you have an existing conditional use permit over there. They've offered us multiple options of what we can do to take care of the issues over there, including just amending the permit for line, so, which is fairly easy to do. So we received, that's currently on schedule over there in Poland. They're in fact right on schedule. And the GMPs that we received from Houston Construction and then we reviewed and we didn't need to approve those. So, on Decker Hill, so first time again, they're requiring a rezone and a conditional use permit. So, and on top of that, they are now requiring a special exception for health. So,
Seriously?
yes,
Did we
they,
have plans like years ago? We didn't look at them or discuss them or just have like.
There's a building sitting there. It's just-
Yeah, I mean, why is this all?
well, the truth of what's going on too is the zoning over there, you know, is you got a fire station, you've got a church, now you have this school, and then you have a transit center across from there. And so, and it's in a hilltop protection zone, which means there really should be no buildings there. And so they're asking for the rezone, they're asking for the conditional use permit, and they're asking for the special exemption on, or the exception on building height, and that has to be approved first before they'll even allow, this just came up last week.
They're treating us like.
We've had these plans for years.
It's awesome partnership.
Well, they've also had the plans too, right, that the conditional use permit and the rezone was submitted, I don't have it right in front of me, but a couple of weeks ago. And so this just happened Thursday, I think. that I
Yeah,
signed
and
the
in the
application.
meantime, Wendy and I have sat down with Roger Armstrong and Chris Robinson with the county council and trying to work with that and build that partnership and understanding of what's happening from the political side, so.
Are they just interested in wasting their own taxpayers' money?
We're not going any higher than what the existing building, is, just for reference.
Yeah.
So
It's not like we're putting in the Apple Center, again, it's not what we're doing.
we're matching,
staying-
essentially
yeah,
matching this.
We're staying within that same footprint of what's been there,
So,
correct?
Wow.
but
So are we behind? Where are we?
we're
Yeah, when
behind
was that?
schedule.
Have you been broken ground?
No,
Oh.
no work has been performed there.
When was it supposed to be?
About a month ago, I'm gonna say roughly, that's, I have to look at the actual schedule, but I'm gonna say about a month ago.
I don't-
So the idea was to have phase one, the bus turnaround, which was to be redone
That was
and
the part-
open for
Yeah, that
school.
extra.
Yes,
Okay.
and that would have been accomplished by now. So that's kind of where that lies, but there's been no work.
So is there any financial, can we go back to these, we've lost time,
Certainly have lost time, but all that have to be determined, right?
Yeah.
Because you don't know how much time.
Right,
it takes. And so,
That's why it's so incredible, is that they're wasting their own taxpayers' money.
having a special exception through another time frame into it, because that had to be applied for quickly. You had to argue why you're getting that special exception and that kind of stuff, so. But they have that application now, so we'll hear back from them. Like I said, no work's been done there. Phase one was the bus turnaround for the most part, and utilities. Phase two's been bid and they've been received, and so those are currently being reviewed. And then same thing with Decker, it falls in this, oh, sorry, excuse me, it does not. We've been trying to work with the county. We met with them yesterday over there to do concurrent work on bus turnaround, why these applications are in, and they've asked for certain things back, and that meeting just happened yesterday, and so we're starting to work through that to see what's in the Park City High School, if you haven't seen it, the back end on the north side there, Lucky John has been demolished. And they will continue some of that select demolition. It takes a little bit of time because they have to sort all this materials out of that. They will continue, that's phase work as well. Phase one will continue with underground site utility work. There's some retaining walls, and then they will start the building pad in the next, I'd say, next couple weeks. So, yeah, they're on time as well. They're trending that way. Their phase two bids, which is the actual, the structure itself, are due Thursday this week. And so that's moving right along. Same thing with Park City High is in the city, and we're working with them on that as well. So, and like I said, they've offered up some options, including a rebuild the master plan, which is, I think, kind of the way it's leaning, because that will allow you to connect Poland and the high school, Treasure Mountain, and all that stuff, and have it all pre-approved, I guess, if you will, for what you want in the future. Yeah, so I'm encouraged by that. Harley's Park, just some dates there. The bidding date, these are trending on schedule as well, but the bidding date would be February 2nd. Construction start date would be June 5th, with a completion date in end of June 2024. Trailside, the bidding date is April 20th. The construction start would be June 5th. These are 2023. And completion date would be the end of June 2024. They too will fall. And so they are on the radar. Part of these applications require a lot of drawings, a lot of information submitted to them, and we're not close to having a full submittal. So as we're going, I will.
So you think it's going to need to be delayed, or do you have enough time to get what they need?
I would think we have enough time.
Now to learn.
Yeah. It is evolving, I will say. So it changes from.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
Thank you, guys. All right. Can I get a motion for the board to adjourn to closed session for the purpose of strategy session to discuss the purchase, exchange, or lease of real property, discuss the character, professional competence.
You won't need that.
I don't need the first one, okay. Discuss the character, professional competence, or physical mental health of an individual. And the strategy session discuss pending and reasonable imminent litigation. My words are no longer. Mandy?
Oh, it is.
Yeah.
Make a motion. When you
Yes.
make a motion, I make a motion to close to something.
Yes. First, Mandy? Yes.
Second.
Yes.
Second, yes.
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 Andrew? Mandy? That's fine. meeting. So we will call to order the truth and taxation hearing. Budget hearing, the board will hold the truth and taxation hearing to hear comments from the community. Before we do that, Todd, I'm assuming you have a little bit of a presentation and then we'll move from there. No. Right, should I hear him?
No,
No.
oh, there it goes.
I hear him.
It's not you.
Technology makes me dizzy.
Did something right today.
All right, thanks for the opportunity to talk through the proposed tax increase that we have for the school budget.
You happen to have a microphone?
I do not happen to have a microphone, so I will try to speak much louder. You bet. So this is the short presentation on the purposes of the tax increase and also the process of the certified tax setting agenda. So the summary, this is where we were with our budgets when we were talking back in June as to what resources are available to the school district and how we want to deploy those resources. So there was new growth based on new assessed valuation, and we'll get into the nuances of what new means in assessed valuations as we go through the rest of the presentation. And we also received state money, so there's increases through the minimum school program. Those were taken into account as we prioritize the budget. And as we came to balance the budget, we had been talking about a tax increase in the out years of the compensation package. So that included years 3 and years 4. So the increase that we have here already assumed that piece. And then we had some additional conversations you've heard earlier today about the rural housing or the residential housing and transportation allowance. Those funds are part of this tax increase as we move forward. And then we also have some balancing through our reserves. So that's the revenue picture as we move forward. So it's new revenues, new state revenues, a tax increase, and reserves. It's a package of multiple funding sources to move forward. The priorities are looking at academic achievement, safe schools, attract and retain employees. You'll see that's the biggest number of all the increase. That's our focus. That was really our primary focus this year. We just recognize the environment that we're in and the challenges that our employees are facing. So that's really the lion's share of this budget as we move forward. And then engagement and operations. This is the areas in more detail that we were looking at. Again, you'll see that attract and retain employees really is the focus of this budget as we move forward.
Would you happen to have a handout that we could, it's hard to read to start with, and I'd like to take it with me.
Yeah, so this is available on the website at this moment, out on board docs. We can definitely produce a hard copy. The certified tax rate is the next part of the discussion. This is just an orientation as to what that is. The certified tax rate was introduced to control government growth. So what it requires is if you as a board plan to increase taxes or any other governmental entity, you go through a hearing and discuss that in that hearing and allow the public to respond to what your strategies and purposes are. The process of the math, if you will, is that the prior year's revenue is set as the target for the tax rates. And then if you plan to spend more, if you need more resource, that's considered a tax increase. So anything more than the prior year's revenue will trigger the tax process or the truth in taxation process. The certified rate does allow for increases to new revenue that have to do with new development. So if a property was vacant and now there's a house on it, the assessed valuation is larger because there is now a structure on it. That is not subject to the truth in taxation process. That's natural growth, and that's considered part of the base when you look at prior year revenue. And there is generally an inverse relationship between assessed valuations and the tax rate. So in order to come to the prior year's revenue, if your assessed valuations go up, the tax rate would have to come down. Those are the two math factors that would bring you back to level with the prior year funding. So that, in a nutshell, that's what the certified rate process accomplishes. I've pulled this up just to show you how that has historically worked, but it's not so perfect anymore, this inverse relationship. So you can see back in 2012, 2013, as assessed valuations were going up, the rate went down. And then in 2015, the legislature introduced an equalization measure. So they tacked on top of the basic levy a revenue target that had to be included in the calculation. So then, even though assessed valuations went up, the rate went up that year as well to capture that target revenue. And then you can see the process worked for a couple more years. And then in 2018, a new equalization concept was introduced. This is, you may have heard this called freezing the basic rate, or that there is a floor to the basic rate. So now when you go through the certified process, when you would expect assessed valuations to go up, the rate would drop, it will only drop to the floor. So that inverse relationship isn't as tight as it used to be. It'll hit a floor. And you can see that the rates held flat, even though assessed valuations have risen. And in 2022, this is probably the most exaggerated difference in that process, because assessed valuations went up enormously, 30–50% statewide. But the freezing of the rate kept the rate at the same place. So it didn't accommodate this large growth. In fact, I was listening to a meeting today, just before the board meeting, about legislators worried about this relationship, that it's not working like it's supposed to. And I'll be at a hearing tomorrow to speak to it as well. So there's acknowledgement that this year just had such a huge change in assessed valuations that the taxing structure is not working as they had anticipated. So, and we can show numerically that that's what's happening. As you look at your individual situation, so this is all on the aggregate across the statewide, there are two things that hit you when you start looking at your own tax notice. The first has to do with the basic levy. The basic levy is set by the state legislature. It's not set by you. You have the privilege of imposing it, but you didn't set it. And that rate and your assessed valuations have that relationship going. And unfortunately, if your assessed valuation grew 30%, but the statewide experience was only 25%, you're actually going to pay more in taxes because the rate didn't offset your particular property's experience. And the inverse happens as well. If your assessed valuation went less than the state experience, you would have a decrease. So that's happening on the basic levy, and I'll bring up a tax notice and show how that works. And then at the local level, so this is board action. So there's the voted levy, the board levy, the capital levy. Same thing is happening here at the local level. So this is now talking about properties that are all within just the school district's boundaries. You can have the same experience. If your property proved higher than your neighbors did, it didn't bring the rate down low enough, and so you'll pay more. And then the opposite happens if yours didn't grow as much. You would actually have a decrease. So those are the dynamics that are happening when you start to say, well, my tax notice said X. How did you come to that? These are the dynamics that are in play. So I was going to jump into the tax notice here for a minute. maybe I shouldn't do humor, but as I was thinking about the presentation over the weekend, I came across this cartoon. And it's somewhat true. It all depends on who you are and how you look at valuations. You have different expectations on what the answer should be. So I'll leave that for what it's worth there. So this is a tax notice designed purposely so you can't read it. This is a member of the community made their notice available to me, and I've tried to blank out their particular information. So we all received this probably the last week of July.
Can you blow it up anymore?
I'm going to go into sections of it.
Perfect, thanks.
So I'm going to talk about first the property valuation section, and then we'll get into the tax rate section. So in this case, this primary home had a market value in 2021 of $734,000. And then in 2022, it was reappraised at just over $1 million. So that's one dynamic, is assessed valuations increased significantly. The district is not part of that process. So that's managed through the county, and there are different mechanisms for determining those market changes. So that's one dynamic that's in place here. What you'll also notice here is that it's a primary home, so the taxable value is subject to an exemption, 45% exemption. So you can see that's what's happening here on this primary home. If you're a commercial property or a secondary home, your taxable value will be the same as your market value. So that is communicated on your tax notice as well. So we can get into the tax rates themselves. The school district actually has 3 entries on the tax notice. The first one, called PC School District, those are the levies that you as a board have control over. So that's your voted levy, that's your ward local levy, your capital levy, your debt service levy. Those are all in that number. And so you can see that there is an increase, and you can see what the dollar impact is related to your action as a board. The next line is the state basic levy. So that's the rate the state has imposed, and it shows up on your tax notice, and you can see that that's a significantly different number in how that increase impacted this particular property. What's a little challenging in this presentation is that when you look at the 2021 rate for the basic levy, it says 0.001401. That's the rate without all of the add-ons to the basic levy. And then they show for 2022, the 001652, that's the fully loaded basic levy. So there's even a little, it's a little hard to follow what's exactly happening through the notice. It's not really an apples to apples comparison. Nonetheless, the increase is still about $150 on this property. The third levy highlighted down below has to do with charter schools. So the state legislature passed legislation that if there are charter school students who would normally have attended your schools, but now are attending a charter school, there is a local responsibility to provide the local funds for that charter school. But they capture it at the state level. So it's not like this money went over to Wyoming. This is money that goes into the state pool for all charter schools, and then it's distributed out on a per student basis to charter schools. Nonetheless, it's an itemized tax that shows up on the tax levy or on the tax notice. So those are the instances of what's happening here in our school district. So I should have done this different. So this is showing the tax rates that are in place today for 2021, comparing them to next year. So the ones in particular that I want to call your attention. So no, we're good. I was just going to get my pointer out. So in the column just left of the blue, it's called the preliminary difference. That was what we had in the preliminary budget back in June. We talked about increasing the tax levy for the compensation package and the components of that. And so that was about the $2.1 million increase in tax collections. The blue represents the action the board took in that meeting. And the concern at that time was that we were facing supply chain issues and inflationary issues around our construction projects. And so the motion was made at that meeting to increase the capital levy to provide funding so that we are still able to move forward on our projects, even with market pricing changing on us. So again, this is the column that's on the operational side. These are the increases related to comp package. And then this is the increase related to construction as we move forward. This is showing what the change is in the rates themselves. So we have the tax rates that were in place for 2021 at 004144. The budget as we move forward with new growth and assessed valuation impacts is actually less. It's 003829 on a tax rate basis. So that's just an artifact of assessed valuations going up and the certified rate coming down, and then board actions to, in one case, hold the capital levy flat. So you'll see 2727 holding flat, and then the increase that we needed for comp package. That translates then into the revenue story, and this is a challenge for our area. So when we look at the basic levy here on the top, the increase of additional revenues of 12 million, not all of that will stay in our community. We are subject to what's called recapture. So as the state sets the basic levy, and then the state also determines what the value of the WPU is, and there's a math comparison. How much did you generate? How much do you are you entitled to? And if you receive more in revenue than you're entitled to, you have to give it to the state.
So in reality, we keep what, about 4%
of the basic levy? We don't keep. We keep all but 12 million. So that's, I'm not sure what percent that is, but that's, but on a revenue basis. So we'll be sending back to the state in this year. Yeah. Well, out of 46 million, you're going to send back 12. So that is
change.
And that's all because of the change. All because of the change. And then we have down here the increases related to operations, which is the comp package, and the increase due to our capital campaign moving forward. And you may notice that these numbers don't look like the ones I just showed you on the previous page. This includes forecasts for redemptions. So these are people who don't pay their tax bill on time, but eventually pay their tax bill because they have up to 5 years to pay their tax bill, or the property goes into tax foreclosure to a tax sale. So most people will get it resolved in that time. So there's a redemption calculation in here, and then there's also fee in lieu. So when you say, when you go to register your car or any other personal property, you pay a fee. That's in lieu of what used to be a tax. It was an ad valorem tax in the state before. So now they call it fee in lieu. So those revenues are captured in this presentation as well. When we look at now on a kind of an individual basis or a property owner basis level, we're using an increment of $100,000 of assessed valuation. What happened to your tax bill per 100,000? So last year you're paying, if you were a primary residential, you're paying about $228 per 100,000. Under our program moving forward for the budget, you pay about $211 per $100,000, or about a $17 drop per $100,000. And I'll immediately acknowledge that you may have had a house like this person where it was 700,000 before, and now it's $1 million later. You're going to be paying more increments of 100,000. So there is the feel of a tax increase, even though on a per unit basis. But your value went up.
5%, 8.5%.
Yeah. So that's the frustration usually when someone looks at their tax bill, hey, you just told me it's going down. Well, yeah, it's going down for 100,000. How much did your property grow in assessed valuation? That may overcome or surpass the decrease that was.
So our revenue is increasing, but our rate is actually decreasing.
Correct. Yeah, because of this, because of new valuation coming on. So that's the story there. The time now is for the public to come and talk to you about how they see this. And then at the end of the hearing, have the opportunity to take action.
Perfect. Does anybody like to come to the rostrum and speak to the board directly?
I have a question.
Yeah, you can come up or just ask.
I can say it. So it looks like with the one slide, we had the houses went up 30-50%, and then the red bars stayed the same. Looks like a significant windfall with the amount of money that's coming in. I know, and you're giving more to the state. My question was, so the 2022, if no increase, and then the proposed with the increase, with that much of a windfall, why is the proposed increase? I mean, it looks like you're just going to send more to the state.
Yeah, so the presentation on that notice assumes that the certified rate adjustments are in place. So when you're looking at the change, they're speaking directly to changes that the taxing entity proposes to make above and beyond the certified rate. So it's not that all of the money is going back to the state, and that only applies to just one levy anyway. All of the other levies, that revenue has been taken into account and is already built into that particular presentation. And what they're trying to isolate is the individual decision that, in this case, the school board is making and how that impacts the tax for your property.
So the largest increase on my tax is the Park City School District.
Sure.
I mean, it's, they doubled the estimate of my house, which I don't know why, but they did. And so, again, it looks like a huge windfall from the slide and from the amount you're getting compared to last year, with all the new houses and the cost of houses going up. So I still don't understand why the proposed needs an increase when you already got what appears like a huge windfall. Why does the Park City School District, the proposed, go up from 0.002006 to 0.002156? Why do you need that increase when you already have a windfall?
So on that slide where I showed the overall revenues available to the school district, there's growth. There was money coming from the state, there's reserves and the tax increase. All of that together is supporting about a $6 million increase to the operating budget of the school district. So so it's not a windfall per se, we actually are proposing costs to the district that are necessary that exceed growth in the property tax, exceed what the state is giving to us, and exceeds what we're able to make available through reserves.
80% of that is compensation. So the vast majority of it is compensation for all employees. And that's probably going to continue to be the driver of local taxes for us, is that we are struggling to attract and retain employees in every role. So not just teachers, but bus drivers, and people who are working lunchroom, and people who are doing everything, which is the same as every job and every situation everywhere around the state and around the country. So that's the main driver.
When you said that increase was 6 million, what percentage is that?
Of the overall budget. So our ask is about a 4.5% increase of the operating budget. When you look at the revenue calculation, it looks more like 6 to 7%, but that includes the portion that we have to give back to the state on the basic levy. So when you get to like the portion that's operating the district, it's about a 4.5%.
The market is already starting to cool. So will we see our taxes go down when my house probably loses another 200,000?
So that's county.
Oh, that's.
And you can always actually appeal to the county to have them reassess your house, and you can go to them anytime, I think almost any year, and ask that you want to appeal the reassessment on your house. But that has
They like
nothing
to
do with
increase
us.
it a lot more than they like to decrease it.
I know they do.
Yeah. But that is not,
But even for the
That's
tax,
not you guys, okay.
even the tax notice you have now, I think there's probably a statement at the bottom. But there is a date which you can do that even for this particular one. So that's how you would avail it. You don't have to wait for them to reassess. If you know it has a different value, you can go and contest that.
yeah.
Does the county have similar public meetings with this, truth and taxation?
Yes.
Yes.
I have not gotten notice of that with any of this that I see, whereas on my tax statement, this meeting was on there, plus there's another one.
For a special service district.
Yeah, and why doesn't the county, I mean, they print these out and send them out. I know I'm not asking you to spend for it. Don't you?
That is way above my pay grade.
Don't you think that would take a lot of pressure off you? If the county got involved.
So we would love that.
Yes, I'll keep that.
We would love for you to charge that.
The more specific answer though is this is for raising a rate that generates more revenue. So they may have made the decision not to raise revenue beyond what they were getting through new growth. So that doesn't trigger a truth and taxation hearing. They will have a budget hearing, but they won't have a truth and taxation because they weren't like in the school district situation where we needed to raise more revenue than we had the prior year. So I think that's probably more close to why they didn't do it. So.
Anybody else have any?
Another question. So I have no idea, just how much is the teacher making per seat? What's your range? I have no idea. And how much, what was the compensation package? Say I'm a teacher, this year I'm gonna get a what % increase? I'm just curious. I have no idea.
Shad, what's our range?
So first year teacher would make 56,000.
Okay.
And that is up.
So the comp package is a 2.5% COLA.
Okay.
And then there is cost of living adjustment. And then we have a step and lane schedule. So you would move from like step 10 to 11 as that's negotiated with the groups. And so that increases in there as well. So that's about another 3%. And then the state made some money available for additional time compensating teachers. That has a value of about 2%. And then we, as a board, had increased the value of the residential housing and transportation allowance, and that's probably another 2%. So if you started to add all that together.
To the salary.
Yes, that was an additional consideration.
Our salary schedules.
It's around, I mean, it's basically around what the level of inflation is.
It's 9%.
Yeah, which is what inflation is running at. So in real dollars, it's not significant. In actual dollars, it's significant by 8 or 9%. In spending power, it's less significant.
Very difficult for a first year teacher to be able to find housing and to be able to come to our area. Which is one of the challenges we're facing in new sources.
Any other questions? Do you guys have?
No, I
any?
don't. Thank you
Okay.
for walking through that.
So then I think I just need to make a
So you
motion.
want to take a motion to accept.
To accept.
They were presented.
Yeah. get Max to that table.
Make a motion to accept the taxes as they were presented.
Second.
Any questions? All in favor? That's unanimous. So we will adjourn until our next board meeting, regular session on September 20th at 4 p.m.
If you have any questions, my number is the number that's on the tax notice. If you have a question, it's into my office. So just catch up with me if you have questions.
Can I get a hard copy?
Oh, yeah, give me your email. And that'll be.
Bye, you guys. Have a nice day at school tomorrow.
Thank you. Bye.
No, 7 years ago, and I didn't follow, so I called it.
I'm gonna tell my name. This is the script.